Hi, friends. Welcome to Encouraged and Equipped. On this podcast, we introduce you to the women of Christ Chapel Bible Church.
We love being encouraged to live out our faith in Jesus by hearing the stories of women in our church community. We are so glad that you're here.
Many of us like a plan, and that's a good thing. But Yvette Livesay-Wright presents us something even better, relying daily on a God who has a plan we don't yet see. Through the ups and downs of starting a business, she invites us into her journey of praying, watching, and thanking God for provision. Sure, it might be scary at times, but according to Yvette, it's also fun.
Hey everyone, this is Misty Denman, and I'm here with my friend Yvette Livesay-Wright. I'm super excited about our conversation today. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about Yvette. She has been a friend of mine for 12, 15 years, something like that. We volunteered together at Women of the Word many years ago and have kind of just always been a great admirer of her ever since then. Yvette is an entrepreneur, a mom, a Christ follower, a wife, a volunteer, and one of my very favorite things about Yvette is that I would say you are one of my best examples that I've ever had in my whole life of someone who lives life to the fullest and lives life abundantly.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
I watch you and I admire that, and you spur me on to do a little more of that because that's not who I naturally am. So thank you for doing that for me. And another fun thing about Yvette is you do not know this, but you have saved me countless dollars and hours over the course of the last at least a decade because, so you can't see us, but Yvette has kind of naturally wavy hair. I have kind of naturally wavy towards curly hair. And my whole entire life, I had always worked to straighten it because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. I don't know why. It never occurred to me to leave it natural. And one time Yvette and I were talking at Women of the Word, and I don't remember if I complained about my frizzy mop of trying to straighten my hair and it wouldn't straighten or something. And you just looked at me and you said, "Why don't you just wear it naturally?" And I thought, oh,
that's an option.
That's an option. And I have ever since.
Awesome. I love that.
So I cannot tell you how many hours of trying to straighten that you have saved me, and dollars of product and whatever. And I literally think about you.
Oh.
Probably 3 times a week when I just let my hair air dry and it looks great. And
yay.
Not sure that I would have ever done that without you. So anyway, that's a small thing that you have no idea that I think about you as often as I do. So, okay, we always love to start our conversation with this question. What's a small thing that's bringing you joy right now?
Well, I think that my bucket list, I just turned 50 this last year, and I started this bucket list a couple years before that, actually, and it has been amazing.
What do you call it?
I call it my Yvette or YLW 50 by 50 hashtag if you want to follow.
Love it.
And I've done some really incredible things, big things, small things, and it has brought me so much joy just experiencing life in that way and being intentional about finding the fun in life. And that's the one thing that it has really taught me is that if you want to have all this fun, you really have to write it down, make a plan, invite the people, do the things. Because just deciding that you want to have fun is not enough. You have to actually it takes effort, and but it's so worth it. It was so fun. It's been fun, and I'm not quite finished. Actually, this podcast is number 46, which I'm super excited about because...
What's number 46? Being on a podcast?
Okay, no. Nope. It's be brave and attempt something that scares me. And so this totally freaks me out to be here, but I'm thankful for it. And I know it's something exciting to do. So thank you.
I love that you added that onto your bucket list because, do something that scares you and be brave. Because I would have thought, no, that doesn't sound like very much fun to me.
No,
so
I know.
I'm not going to put it on my bucket list.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is that like the bucket list has been stuff that has been fun, but also pushing me to kind of grow. Even though I'm 50, like we can still grow.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell me a random something or other that stands out to you from your bucket list that you've done.
Okay,
that you're so glad you did.
I mean, I've done stuff like gone sailing.
Wow.
I've done a Saturday Night Live inspired photo shoot.
Amazing.
I did. I started a cooking club with my girlfriends. I dressed up formally and went and had tacos.
How
with
did you
another
even think it? Okay, well, I'm not going to ask you that because we got to get on to the rest of the conversation. But what I want to ask you is like, how did you even come up with that one? That's so fun.
I know. Well, one of the things that I did was I started a list. I just started brainstorming all the things that are fun, like, or that would make me smile. And wouldn't that be fun? And when I made the list, I decided not to judge myself as to what was on that list. If it sounded fun, I wrote it down. And then later I could figure it out.
Yeah.
Or even if it sounded hard, I was like, no, I'm just brainstorming right now. There's no wrong answers. So, anyway, that's how I did it.
I love this, Yvette. I love it. I love it. I do follow you. You have inspired me. I may not do anything on that kind of scale, but I do think about that's part of what I was saying, that I feel like you're one of those people that have been an example to me and inspired me to live life fully or abundantly. And so,
you.
yeah, super exciting.
You.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. That is a lot of joy and ongoing joy too. So that's really cool. So we're talking today really about your decision to launch a business. I want to hear your story of how that happened. I want to hear how you have walked with God in that, how you have seen God at work in your life and that, the ups and downs of it. So the first thing I want to ask you is, tell me about what it was like when you first considered launching your business. What was going on in your heart and mind?
I ever since grade school, I knew I wanted to own a business. That was like the answer that I had when somebody would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say I wanted to own a business. So like I knew it it's just in my DNA, I think. So naturally I went to TCU, got a business degree, got my MBA, and after that, I started in the consulting world, and then just really had a heart shift and shifted over to nonprofit work. And I worked in Dallas and worked at the Goodwill there, and that's where I started all my love for thrifting and everything.
You do have an amazing gift of thrifting well.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
And then I became a stay-at-home mom, got married, had children, stayed at home. Michael, my husband, he was number 2 at a small design agency in Arlington, and we were super excited about that. It was a great place for him to work, but in 2007, when the recession hit, since he was kind of number 2, they had asked him to take a pay cut. Him and the number 1 guy were going to take a pay cut so that they could keep all of their employees. And while we understood that completely, it totally kind of rocked us because we were like, oh, wait a minute, we have this young family.
One income.
Yeah. And it just was kind of like, oh, we weren't ready for that.
Yeah.
And so that's when we decided to send out an email. And I basically gathered up all my friends and all my emails, and we sent an email to everyone that said, hey, if you need a baby announcement or a wedding invitation or a logo or whatever, just give us a call. We're here. We're going to kind of do this on the side, as a little side hustle. And so basically our life became on the side, everything paper, just all this fun stuff, little projects. And it just grew and grew. And from that email, It slowly grew until Michael decided to go part-time at the agency in 2009, so a couple years. And then through tons of prayer and God's leading, we launched our company, Lola Lorena, full-time in 2011.
That's an amazing story. A couple of things that stand out to me, and that one is that, that recession, I mean, I remember it well. It was a big, hard thing for a lot of people. And having to take a pay cut as a single income family, while you understood it, obviously was a hard thing.
Yeah.
But who knows where you would be now if God hadn't allowed that hard thing.
Oh, totally.
I mean,
absolutely, because it's one of those things where you can't see what's happening, but you know that you're going to be fine. I don't know. There was just a peace about it.
Yeah.
And just I could say that I thought of sending this email, but I don't think that was it. I mean, I think God was like, hey, send an email.
Yes. Yeah, and gave both you and Michael kind of a love for something similar and gave you complementary skills for the way you could each do a piece of it.
Totally, because he's an artist and he's not a manager or a business person, and I'm a business person and I love art. And so it's like a perfect little side hustle.
Yeah, I love that. That became a full-time hustle.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I always am looking for the ways that as you look back at something that seemed like a bad thing that God was using for good, or that it became a good thing. And that is a great example of that.
Yes.
So as you're starting out, tell me what some of your fears were, and how you dealt with them. And I want to say, as we just kind of in full disclosure, as we continue on in this conversation, that my husband left, now we didn't start a business together, but he left his job about 7 years ago and launched his own business. It is my bent to, I am whatever the opposite of entrepreneurial is. I like predictable and steady everything. And so it was a hard thing for me. It's been a great thing in many ways as well, spiritually, and, some good things for us too. But I have watched you and listened to you, and there have been a few times I've even asked you questions over the years about how you thought or dealt with this or that. But you have been one of those places that I've looked to think, okay, we can do hard things, we can do the scary thing, and God provides for that. So I just wanted to say that because I also have. I haven't done it myself, and we didn't do a joint business, but certainly our family has gone through that leap of leaving the known and starting something unknown. So anyway,
it's scary.
It is scary. So what were your fears? How did you deal with them?
Yeah. So the biggest one, like you've touched on, is not, no steady paycheck, because I was at home and he was our breadwinner. And so to think, oh, wait a minute, like, where's the money going to come from is very scary.
And what happens if it doesn't come in?
And we didn't have like some huge cushion or pillow to fall back on. So, and I will say this, when you feel like you're being led by God to do something, you might encounter the world saying, we're in a recession, right? Like you shouldn't do this or that. Like it's not wise, this or that. And while I'm not saying that you should ignore wise counsel, I am saying that if God is leading you somewhere, like you should listen.
Absolutely. And honestly, there are a million examples in the Bible of God asking his people to do things that didn't make sense on the surface.
Right.
It makes no sense to march around the walls of Jericho for 7 days instead of going into fight. It makes no sense for Abraham to have just picked up from, his ancestral home and just gone.
Right.
And not knowing where he was going. There's so many more stories like that too. So I love the obedience and the faithfulness and the courage in that, and the willingness to listen to the Lord, even over people who do have great wisdom and great experience.
Great intentions.
And I was going to say that. Yeah, great care for you.
Right. And so I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not encouraging you to jump off the cliff if you think it's a good idea.
Yes.
It's more of like if you have prayed a lot about
Yes.
it and you feel just strongly led to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference, right?
Great way to frame that. Yes.
Because I don't want anyone thinking like, oh, Yvette said I should go
Just
do
impulsively.
this.
It wasn't impulsive, right?
No,
It was not impulsive.
No, we took a lot of time. And in my story, there's a ton of waiting. So like waiting for the right time to do the thing, you know, is super essential, really. Not jumping the gun, because I'm the one who wants to like, oh, we have a plan. Let's do it. It's time. Da da da. And Michael's the one who was like, no, it's not time. Like we need to wait. Like we need to be patient and wait. And so we're a good balance for each other.
Yeah.
But you know, that is one thing that I had to learn. Basically, I had to. One of my friends just told me to shut up and pray. Like, stop talking about it.
Wow.
And pray about it.
Wow.
And when you shut up and pray, like, you know, then
That's gold. Yeah.
It's you've decided to let go of controlling it, and so that's what I had to do.
That's so good. You have mentioned to me before, and I can actually remember where we were sitting. I think it was maybe at Torchy's Tacos outside. And I was asking you kind of questions along this line. This was years ago. And you mentioned a journal to me that you started as your business started. And that is something I have come back to a million times in your example of faithfulness and thoughtfulness. So will you tell everybody about your journal?
Yes. Okay. So I brought it.
Oh,
It's we knew we were on the right road. We just couldn't see the path. So I decided to start a journal. And I'm not really a journaling person. I want to be that person. I don't know. I think they're really cool.
yeah. There's a lot of things I'm like that. I want to be that person.
I want to be that person.
So I have 17 blank journals.
Right. Exactly.
Because if I get the cutest one, surely this time it'll work.
That'll motivate me.
Yeah.
Right. So I started the journal, and in my first entry, I put Colossians 4:18, which is devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. And so I knew that that's how we needed to kind of launch this thing, because it wasn't, I could sense that it wasn't our thing. Like it was God's thing. And so I started the journal. It lists all of my needs, all of my prayers, all of my cries for help, prayer after prayer. And what I started doing was writing down God's answers in red so that I could go back and see the answers easily. And, you know, in the Bible, they talk about how you should make markers or whatever to remind yourself of things. And I feel like if you don't write it down, you forget like all the things that God's done for you or your family. And I can't say that I'm excellent at that. I have this journal and I have a few years of entry, but like when you asked me to be on this podcast and I pulled out the journal and I started reading it, I just couldn't, I was like, oh my gosh, I wrote that. Like that doesn't even sound like me. You know what I mean? And it was so precious to look at how God had been faithful all this time. And it's been awesome. So I strongly encourage, even if it's a year worth of doing it and then saving it and then going back and looking and remembering that God loves you, wants to care for you, wants to do all these things, you know, and he really just wants us to remember, right?
That's beautiful. And a faith builder?
Oh, gosh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, it's built my faith. And I only know a couple of the things you shared a couple of the ways that you had recorded things. I remember one time, I think it was at that same lunch at Torchy's, and you were telling me about how you had, I can't remember actually, I was going to say I remember exactly, but it was something like you were needing some certain amount of money to kind of be square for the month or whatever it was. And that just kind of with no time to spare, that exact amount of money came in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what cash flow is like the biggest problem for small businesses. Like it's just, that's, I think, where a lot of people run into trouble is cash flow. And, you do this work, you have these bills that you have to pay, the printer and the whoever's.
Yeah.
And you have invoiced the client, but maybe they have not paid yet. And so like your credit card bill might be due before you've been paid for it. And so because we weren't intentionally launching this business, like we didn't have the emergency fund that they say you should have.
Right.
We didn't have all that ready, right? And so so I came across this verse. It was Proverbs 38:30. 8b, and it says, "Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread," was the name, or it was the verse. And so I started this daily bread report, and here it is. So like, it's listed the amount that we in one column by this date. So it's a date is listed. And then if it came in, I wrote it in red, the amount, the day that it came in and the amount that came in. And so everything in red right here,
And so y'all can't see this, but I'm looking at this beautifully written. I can't, from across the table, I can't read it. That's also my eyes too. But I can see black, then red, black, then red, black, then red, meaning need met, need met. But just.
Yes. I mean, so like just looking at it, that God is in this with you.
Yeah.
And some of these, like this one is $13 over the amount that I needed, or, $10 over, or hundreds of dollars over, or whatever. And so I just realized that it was so obvious that God was working and providing for us. And just like the manna in the desert, like God was giving us exactly what we needed today, not too much, just our daily bread, just to keep us relying on his provision, and that we should be holding things loosely and not storing up. He asked them not to store up the manna either, and just enough for today.
That is so good, Yvette. That is so good, because for me, at least, it's not my natural inclination to want just enough.
Right. Well, none of us, right?
I guess that's true.
Yeah. None of us.
I want enough for me to feel safe in the flesh, which is more than just your daily bread.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also the butter.
Yeah. Right. And maybe some really nice jelly too.
Yummo.
Yeah. But it's scriptural. It is, I pray the Lord's Prayer every day, and I have to always pause and really think about that, if asking God for the day's daily bread. So that sticks out to me as a spiritual lesson and obedience of praying for that daily bread. But that is a beautiful, whatever you would call that, a marker towards God's faithfulness, a reminder to you of God's faithfulness, a concrete paper, and since you're in the paper business, remembrance of the Lord and his goodness and his provision and how he's just in it like that. So good. So good. So given how you've seen God provide like this, tell me about how it's caused you to maybe rely on the Lord more, rely on the Lord differently, just by the nature to me of owning your own business rather than getting a steady outside paycheck. I think you've kind of touched on that already, but tell me more about that.
Okay, so we knew that having God leading our business was the only way we could do it. It was a total reliance that we needed, and if he didn't bring the clients or the work, we were dead in the water. We have a big joke that since neither of us have a steady paycheck, if we didn't kill it ourselves, we're not eating it.
That's truth. Yes.
Because we have to do it, right?
Yeah.
But God is bringing the thing right to us, right?
Yeah.
And so the big lesson to us was that God is a God of details. Like that's where the Daily Bread report has helped me realize that. He cares about the details. In Isaiah 30:18, it says, he longs to be gracious to us, and blessed are those who wait for him.
And you talked about waiting.
Yes.
So now you're seeing the blessing of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So not rushing ahead, not trying to figure it out ourselves, not trying to control it all, but letting it ride the way God wants it to ride. And there was so much waiting. There's so much waiting. But through the process, he told me and showed me that clearly if he cares about paper, which sounds super ridiculous, then he most definitely cares about my kids and my friends and my family, because, I only had to wait days to see on that Daily Bread report that I needed the $6,000, and I got $6,013.
Yeah.
That I waited days to see that answered prayer, and so many things that we pray about can't be solved in days. They're solved or, in years, or maybe not in our lifetime. And so we just have to rely on God and know that He's still listening and still working behind the scenes, even if we can't see it. So it just gave me confidence to wait on these things, in our family and friends that that we're concerned about and worried about, or whatever. That we want good things for our people, and sometimes you have to wait and see what God does.
And let God do it his way, rather than trying to cram a fix or a solution.
Right. The square peg in the round hole, just it doesn't work when we try to do it ourselves. And so I'm super thankful to go back and have this opportunity to look back. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so did you ever doubt that it would work? Did you ever just think, was there ever a point either before it started or sometime, after you were kind of all in and you thought, I don't know if this is happening? And how'd you work through that, if so?
Well, that's when I went back and read the journals. Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, I was pretty afraid at the beginning, very afraid. I'm
almost glad to hear you say that. I know that we're not supposed to fear, but you obviously have had great faith. You've obviously walked with the Lord through this, but it feels very normal to me that you would have fears and I've had a lot of fears. So it helps me to watch you and think, okay, you had fears and you figured out how to trust God through it, rather than, we're not
super
easy.
Superhuman is not, there is none.
Yeah, true.
Like that. And the fact of the matter is that fear is still an emotion that God created, right? So it's something that we are going to experience as a human. And so how do we move through that? How do we get to peace, And so I did it by journaling and writing it all down, and tons of prayer. And even in the most stressful times, when we thought, oh gosh, the money just isn't going to come in, or no one is knocking on our door, or anything like that, I would look to Michael and say, did we make the right decision? And he's like, we totally made the right decision. It's okay. It's okay that it's stressful. That doesn't mean it was the wrong decision because it's stressful, or just because there's unknowns or anything like that. Because I think sometimes in life we think it will only it will only be perfect if it was right,
Yeah.
and that
or if God is asking me to walk through this, it should be easier, maybe, or whatever.
And that's not
true.
necessarily true. Like it might be, and it might not be. But the only way to kind of have a peace as to whether he wants you to abandon or if he wants you to move forward is through prayer, in my case, at least.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going on your own gut, and your gut a lot of times shouldn't be trusted.
Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
On your own understanding.
All your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. I totally just thought of that. I mean, that's a perfect example. What you just said is the embodiment of that verse.
Well,
really.
Thank you. But the thing is that we want to lean on our own understanding, and we think our history and our everything that
your education, your
your
experience,
said, or
somebody else's example of what happened or worked for them,
right, exactly,
all of that. So, okay, it's 2019. Tell us about business.
Right. So fast forward to COVID.
Yeah.
And so we are by that time we thought, okay, we need to kind of focus our business. In 2018, we were like, let's focus on wedding invitations. We love doing them. We enjoy that industry and the brides and everything. And we thought, okay, we're going to focus on invitations because Michael is super creative. We can have a different kind of vibe in that industry. Yeah. So that's what we decided to do. And then, COVID hits, and all of a sudden there aren't any weddings.
Wow.
And you're like, oh, that wasn't something I was expecting, right? And so our business came to a complete halt. Like I've never, nothing we've ever experienced. Like
of course.
Crickets. And
there's no parties. There's no weddings.
Parties, there's no weddings, no nothing.
Wow.
And so we were obviously concerned.
Yeah.
And brainstorming on how we should pivot.
Yes.
But the biggest difference was that we didn't have the fear that we had at the beginning. Because of the history.
Yes.
I mean, because we knew God had provided this whole time. We knew he wouldn't lead us here to abandon us. We knew all of that. And so
that is beautiful.
You can still sleep when you don't have that fear that you're alone or abandoned, and so it was awesome. And I could also kind of be an encouragement to other people who this is their first time to not have a paycheck.
Wow.
Or their first time to have their husband at home or something. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was a totally different experience than we had when we started. And but it was super I felt great and super thankful that God had already led me through all of that so that I could be a little less fearful. I'm not saying that I had no fear. I'm just saying it was less.
You knew what to do with your fear, I feel like. You knew to take it to the Lord. You knew to trust him because you could rely on the history you had with him and he had with you of being faithful.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And then, gosh, what a gift it is to be able to share that with other people during that crazy time because I think that was financially, that was not a difficult time. Life went on as normal for us, but I think one of the things that was heaviest on my heart during that time was all of the people you saw around you whose industries had just
collapsed,
disappeared.
Yeah.
And it felt like there was nothing you could do to help.
And that it was a worldwide thing, not even like Fort Worth or my friends or my family. It was everyone, and it felt I don't know, like like there was a camaraderie that could be
Yes.
building.
Yes.
Because we all were experiencing the same
Yeah.
hardship at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It was really hard. But I'm thankful
Yeah.
that we had already done some of this work
Yeah.
so that it wasn't as hard for us as it could have been.
I also even think that it, having that previous history with the Lord, to rely on probably freed up some like mental, emotional, spiritual space for you to be able to even think how you would pivot, to think how you would be able to walk alongside somebody else in it rather than just trying to control your panic.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
like you
because
had
you
the
want to
space
go
to
into
do that.
panic
Yeah,
mode.
yeah.
You totally
and other people might not have been able to because it was their first time for that kind of thing to hit. But what a gift it is to have had a little, to have had some spiritual development, some whatever kind of development that you could lean on in those times.
Right.
Gosh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's not something we had talked about. I think that's really neat. Okay, so you've already told me several lessons you've learned along the way, which I am carrying with me. So good. But what else? What else? Tell me some other things you've learned. I just want to hear lessons you've learned along the way, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, thanks. I think one of the first lessons, or not first lessons, but one of the lessons that come to mind is I was reading Paul David Tripp's book, New Morning Mercies.
Yeah, which I love.
I love that book.
Yeah.
It's like a daily devotional.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about prayer in one of the days and how we tend to see prayer as us writing a bunch of things down on a sheet of paper and handing it to God and asking him to sign off on all these things. I want this, I need this, that kind of thing. And he challenges us that our prayers should evolve into us handing a blank sheet of paper to God that we have signed, saying, God, you fill in the sheet of paper and I will agree to do whatever you write on it. Essentially, we're asking him to take over and him to take us where he wants us to go. Obviously, that's a super scary proposition.
It is.
To let go of things. And because I desperately want to control, I like to control things.
Yes.
But essentially, we're giving God the pencil to fill in the paper and, so to speak. And that is a scary thing, but I am learning to do that more. I've seen more fruit when I let go than when I try to write the script.
And I feel like you can do that when you understand and have seen God's character and heart and love for you, which you've kind of said all along the way.
It's about trust,
yes,
really.
Yeah. And that's really what you were saying about COVID too, is you could trust him because you had seen him provide before, regardless of whether it was exactly the way you would have anticipated, planned for, wished for, whatever. You saw him provide for your daily needs, and you saw that he never left you. So that are those. I think that's the only times that you could even attempt to do the scary thing of handing him a blank sheet of paper rather than a sheet with your wants and needs, when you can trust his character and his heart.
Right. And again, I do want to say that, like, I'm not perfect at that at all. Like,
I know that. None of us are. And I don't hear you saying that. I just hear you saying that over the years, particularly through Lola Lorena, you have learned to see God for who he really is.
Yes, and to trust where he's taking us.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a rocket with a huge tail that's been lit, and I just don't know where that rocket is going.
Which direction he's pointing it.
And when it's going to take off, or if it's going to take off. So it is about just kind of letting go. I think that's a daily struggle to let go. But that's one of the lessons I've learned.
I love it. And it's watching you has taught me that as well. So
you're
good.
sweet.
Okay, what else?
Okay, a fun one is from my bucket list
Yes.
is that I've learned that if you aren't having fun in this life, essentially you're doing it wrong. Because
That is so interesting to me. I just am so fascinated about it. Tell me more.
Okay, so I think it just all it takes is effort, really. That most people want to join you in the fun.
Yeah.
And you are essentially responsible for the energy that you bring into a room.
Yeah.
And so like if you don't like the energy, then change it, right?
Yeah.
Like take charge and do it. And so in my mind, one of the things that one of the things I have changed is if, you go to lunch with someone, you're like, or you see someone, you're like, oh my gosh, we need to have coffee. And you both say that and you both want that, but you don't actually make a plan.
Right.
It won't happen.
Correct. Yeah.
It won't
How many
happen.
times has it happened to me? A
Right.
gazillion. Yeah.
So then 2 years later, you see the same person.
We should have coffee.
We should have coffee.
Yeah. So true. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. It's okay. It's okay.
Right. So one of the small changes I have made is like pull out my phone and make the appointment right then with them right then.
Yeah.
Because if I want to have coffee with you, Misty, we just have to plan it.
Yeah.
It's about planning, being intentional, seeking out the joy, not just waiting for you to call me or, waiting for me to bump into you again or, if you're feeling kind of lonely, just call somebody. Somebody else is also feeling lonely, right?
I feel like you may have, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like in owning your own business, you have had to be proactive and thoughtful about what all the pieces of your life look like. You can't own a business and just let life come at you. You have to
go get it.
Yes. Have an intentional plan, follow through with it and whatever. And that has bled over into these other areas of your life.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, because the thing is that you just can't sit and let life happen. Or you can, but it's just not that fun to do that, right? And you don't have all now that I'm 50, I realize like I don't have my whole life ahead of me, right? If I have 40 more years, 30 more years, 10 more years, 2 more days. Like I want those next 2 days to be fun, right? Not fun.
Yeah. And what I love about that is I think sometimes people, and I have had this tendency before, you kind of divide up work from fun. Like there's work and then there's fun. Or you divide up, I don't know, some sort of spiritual responsibility and fun. You're saying they go together.
Yes, and play is important.
Yeah.
Like adult play is important.
Like sailing, like the cooking club, like the tacos in a formal dress.
Just to be silly is fun.
Yeah.
And it brings joy to the people who are watching you do it.
Yeah.
It brings joy to yourself and the friend you invited along. And it's just fun. And it's good. It's good for your soul to play. There's this importance people have put on productivity, and Brené Brown talks a lot about that, and the importance of play. And I think it's super important to not put productivity on a pedestal. Like it's okay to rest. It's okay to play. It's okay to just stare off into space. It's really, all those things are okay. Every moment doesn't have to be productive, and every moment doesn't have to check a box or it's not healthy, So
that's a great truth.
So anyway, it took 50 years, but that's okay.
Sure. I'm
whatever.
it's better that it took 50 years than 60 or 70 or 80, or you never got there. Or you're on your way out and thinking, man, wish I had rested some or had fun or whatever.
Or spent more time with my family. You know, that whole thing, like nobody says they wish they would have worked more or whatever.
Right.
Same idea.
Right.
So like just scooting the people and relationships back onto a priority list and taking charge of spending time with them, making memories with them, having fun with them, because that's what gets remembered. Like when you think of your loved ones or whoever have passed or, that you don't see anymore, what you're reminded of is all the fun you had together, right? And
yeah, that's so good. It's interesting too, because as you're saying all these things, I'm thinking in my mind, I wonder if someone who works for somebody else who, let's say it's a really demanding job, it takes lots of hours or whatever, if they're thinking in their head, well, I can't do that because I have these XYZ external demands on me. But actually, I think, and I get that pushback. On the other hand, one of the things I have observed in my husband who owns his own business is I think in lots of ways it's super hard to stop working when you own your own business because you could always be doing something else or more.
There is always something you could be doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I appreciate even more that you have chosen to intentionally take time for these other things because it would be easy not to.
Right.
And you could justify it.
Oh, totally. And the thing is that I think we did it, quote unquote, wrong the first however many years and burnt out because you could work, 24/7 if you wanted to.
Right.
And
and that didn't go well for you.
It didn't go well. Yeah. I remember a guy that I got my MBA with. He said, "I'm going to own my own business because I want to work half days." And the joke is that like he didn't realize that half days meant 9 to 9.
I love it so much.
Right?
Yeah,
so it's that's how it could be, 9 to 9.
Yeah.
And then you're left with nothing.
Yeah.
And you're also empty because you feel like totally worn out. And so we kind of got burnt out and we were like, okay, no, we are going to, Michael and I every day take a lunch break and we watch a little something on TV for lunch. Then he works until 5:30. He works from home. So it's easy. I mean,
sure.
He works until 5:30 and then we're done unless there's like a major something.
Right.
But otherwise we have to put up these boundaries or else we could work all the time. Yeah.
That's really good. That's good. Okay, last question. If you were having that coffee that you intentionally set up in your appointment book right that moment when you saw them passing by them in Central Market or whatever, and they were maybe thinking about trying something new, whether it was work-related or not work-related, doing something new that felt risky, what advice would you give to her?
Oh my gosh. I would say yes. Take the risk. Do the thing. Like I said before, though, like with prayer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yes, do the hard thing. It's so fun to watch how it all plays out. And I would totally want to be their cheerleader. Just to watch other people be brave is something that really motivates me to be brave. And so I would say yes, do it. I would also say, can I come with you? Because it sounds fun.
I told you have been my example of someone who lives life abundantly, lives life fully, has fun, and you have been that example for me. So thank you, Yvette.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your heart. Thanks for sharing your walk with the Lord. Thanks for sharing how you have seen God in hard places and waiting places and risky places, and just appreciate your willingness to share your story with us. It means a lot to me. So thanks.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
I'm going to pray for us. Lord, thank you for being a God that asks us to do hard things, but then never leaves us. Thank you for being a God who leads and guides the way every step of our lives. Thank you for being a God who always asks us to continue to trust and walk closely with you. Lord, I pray that our conversation would be an encouragement today, that we would honor you with our obedience to you and the words we say and the lives we lead. And I ask all this in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for listening. For more episodes, be sure to follow Encouraged and Equipped.